Good morning, everyone. It's nice to have you all here. We appreciate the chance to share spiritual fellowship and friendship on a regular basis. And we are quite blessed. For those who don't know us, I go by the moniker of Nayaswami Daiva, and this is Nayaswami Gangamata. And thank you. So forgiveness and common sense versus dogmatism. You know, it's interesting that he used common sense versus dogmatism and then threw them both out. I was reading a book years ago. It was by Robert Heinlein, a great sci-fi writer from the 60s and 70s. And he wrote in one of his books that there is nothing less common than common sense. It's just like horse sense isn't the sense that horses have, by the way. It's the sense that it takes to deal with horses, which was a surprise to me. You know, who here likes to make lists? Anybody? Get through the day, you make a really good list, and yeah. Okay. The active mind, the rational mind, engaged in the world at a conscious level, it's a list-making machine. It is certain that if you can get all the facts, all the details lined up and balanced out, you'll know which way to go. And if you can just get the list made up and you achieve the list, something has happened. But spirituality, spiritual teachings always are about the fact that what's obvious isn't what's really going on. If what's obvious was what was really going on, every single soul in creation wouldn't actually bother to be here anymore. Because wholeness, everything we seek is found not in this world, it's found inside in stillness. And everything else is just simply us chasing after ourselves and not knowing where to look, chasing after the presence of spirit, the stillness of spirit, and looking everywhere else. Dogmatism is, taking a spiritual truth and applying it indiscriminately. It's a little like saying to everybody here, it'd be a great Sunday service, wouldn't it? I don't think many of you'd come back if I said, we should all be meditating 20 hours a day. It's a fact. It's true. We should all be meditating 20 hours a day. If we really want fulfillment, we should all be meditating 20 hours a day. The masters all say it. There is nothing else that we should be doing. The problem is, it's probably not going to happen at this point for most of us. And if that's the only conversation, the story is over. So we have to go past just the obvious instructions. It's like, telling a kid, in kindergarten that the way to solve the problems of their math problems and stuff is by advanced calculus. It just isn't going to happen. And we either start to apply. This is a true application of this. A friend of ours had cancer, and she was really struggling with it and had been struggling with the after effects of the therapies that she'd had to get past it. And somebody had read a good pop psychology book somewhere in the history of all this, and went to her one day and says, it's just all in your mind. Well, it's true. The problem is it's all in our mind. The whole creation, everything that we perceive out there is in our mind. So it was actually very, very true and completely useless. Well, so, yeah. Now what? We are committed. Every one of us is committed to finding happiness externally where it can't be found in some particular way or ways that are uniquely ours. And we're just really married to it. And, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And we keep thinking by just changing the circumstances subtly, we're going to get there. And, when it doesn't work, we often are really convinced that it was his fault or her fault or their fault. Our parents are to blame. My ex-spouse is to blame. Actually, she is, but not you. we even know, I mean, we laugh about that, but we even know the truths, and it's really true for everybody except me, and for me, they really did do it. So we have an opportunity, always, but this week, just to go past dogmatism and theory and, just energize more or just go do Kriya. I mean, those things are true, and sometimes it's a really appropriate application of the conversation. But often, we have to work our way back from those previous commitments. We have to work our way back from the deep commitment to those falsehoods and gently work our way back into what we can do. And from there, we can build on those strengths. And so, common sense starts to tell us that. But there are many times in our lives that what's really called for, and especially, and I'm talking now specifically to the group that might be watching this, specifically to the people who are in this room on purpose. I don't see anybody who's wandered in kind of distractedly this morning. We get that occasionally. People who come in and going, what do you guys do here? Which is a really good question. But we're here deliberately, and sometimes if we really want fulfillment, we know I really want the fulfillments that the masters talk about. I've tried little bits of it. I know that to the degree I've tried it, it works. We have to go past common sense. We have to go past dogmatism. We have to go past common sense. We have to stop thinking that we know how it's supposed to work. We have to go past our lists. We have to go past all the little check marks of, well, this is true and this is not true, and so it's got to be this way. I mean, it's just, we spend our lives, we've been trained now for 30 years in this life, and God knows how long other lives, to try and listen deeper to intuition, to what's trying to happen. And it's one of the guiding lights of Ananda. What's trying to happen here? What's really trying to happen? And then trying to navigate by the answer to that question. And almost always on the spiritual path, what's trying to happen is not obvious. Almost always, the gift that you're looking for is someplace where you don't think it can be found. I would never do that. But if it was within the container where we already knew to look, we would already have the happiness. Common sense is not enough. Dogmatism isn't it, but common sense is also not it. We have to go past that. And the way we get into that is we have to go into communion. We have to go into the stillness and ask the questions without being afraid of the answer. Without, Lord, whatever you want, but you want this, don't you? I read a quote of C.S. Lewis yesterday. I think it was Jyotish who might have written it, and maybe some of you have seen it. But he said, C.S. Lewis said, many, many, many people want to serve God, but most of them in an advisory capacity. And so we have to move into another realm. And the other thing, and this is really true, and worth considering, is the thing that often holds us back is a sense of inner limitation on the amount of energy that we have or the courage that we have. And when we feel that limitation of courage or reservoir of energy and stuff, it is so easy to turn and blame the failure, blame the circumstances on somebody else, on something other than ourselves. But every time we do that, we constrict the capacity to move forward. And forgiveness is the washing away of those things. Even in the life of Christ, it's so graphic, and we're coming into Easter, we're in the Lenten period. But his job was to what? What was his job? He came to this world for one thing. What was it? It was to help people remember that it's love that makes it all work. Right? And that was what he came for. That was the only reason he came. He didn't come to get rich. He didn't come to, get drunk. He didn't come for any other reason but to help people have that experience. And the result of his efforts were what? He got stuck up on a cross and poked full of holes. He got crucified for that one simple gesture to help people remember that it's love that works. And the night before he's crucified, what does he do? He prays. He prays to God. And he says, he knows what's coming, and he says, really? This is what you want? This is the story? All of this gesture and gathering people and helping people to have a glimmering, and you want the story to end like this? Even he, I'm sure I know better. But he was smart enough to say, it doesn't look that good, but nevertheless, thy will. And then what he does is, instead of saying, you guys are blowing it, it's all your fault, look how you're ruining my storyline and the service that I brought, and look how mean you are to me, up on the cross, he says, forgive them, they know not what they're doing. It's one of the grandest moments in all spiritual history. And it's one of the reminders of what's possible. And remember the story now, because if he just had a great life, and he had just preached love, who would remember him today? But because he went along with God's will, and that moment of forgiveness, that supreme moment of forgiveness, and then because he was so beyond human value at that point, even death couldn't touch him. And the story we have, and the sense that love conquers, and the capacity for us to turn his direction for understanding, is simply because he went through a storyline that just looked absolutely impossible. We have to have the courage. The invitation of the readings this week is to forget judgment and vindictiveness. Somebody once, I just read the other day, that being angry with somebody is like drinking poison and expecting them to die. We poison ourselves with our anger and our resentments, and it has no effect on other people. It just poisons us. And the invitation this week is to let go of these things, to love God. We are the blind, halt, and lame. We're the ones that they're talking about. Mother Teresa, when we saw her, she said, I pick up the poorest of the poor in my country, but I don't pick up the poorest of the poor. Poorest of the poor are those in your country, the wealthy in your country, that have lost the understanding of how to love. Those are the poorest of the poor. Physical hunger is nothing compared to spiritual hunger. Turn to God. Take a moment, turn to God. Let go of those resentments. Let go of those hurts. Let go of those pettinesses of the heart. And feel for that flow of joy, that flow of love washing through those closed areas, setting you free. I was going to read Whispers from Eternity on forgiveness. It's number 182, Demanding Forgiveness. But I'm not. It's a long reading. It's beautiful, but it's a long reading. I would encourage you to read it on your own if you're inspired. It's a central concept, but we're also celebrating the lives and missions of these two great masters this week, Paramahansa Yogananda and his guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar. So I'm going to hand this off to Ganga Mata. So thank you so much, and God bless.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I too want to welcome you and thank you all for coming. There's a chapter at the end of Yogananda's book, The Autobiography of a Yogi. It's called I Go to America. And Yogananda, in a meditation, has a vision of all these Western faces. And he knows that he's going to be going to the West to share the teachings of self-realization. And he was praying in his room, in his home. He wanted God's blessing. And then all of a sudden, Babaji appears to him. Babaji is this saint right here just to your left of Jesus. He doesn't appear very often. He is known as the deathless saint, the formless saint. But there he is. He appears in front of Yogananda and he says, yes, it is I I who chose you to go to the West and spread the teachings of self-realization. I appeared to your guru, Sri Yukteswar, at the Kumbh Mela many years ago, and I told him that I would be sending you for training, and that then you would go out to the West and share these techniques of God realization. And so there is Yogananda. If you could only imagine, Babaji has appeared to him, and it's just so fun in the chapter. He wants to go, right, and embrace him probably and get close to him. I know I would have, being Italian and seeing him for the first time. But he's stuck. He can't move. And then it isn't until then Babaji blesses him and then disappears that then he can move his feet. It's such a beautiful, beautiful story in that chapter. And Yogananda, if you read, continue to read, he had to overcome so many obstacles to even come to America. Talk about, did that make even any sense? You know, he didn't have money for the trip, and his father initially was not giving him the money, but finally he said, I give you the money for this journey, not as your father, but as a disciple of Lahiri Mahashaya. And then there wasn't any room on the boat. The boatmaster said, sorry, there's no room for you. Again, you would think that would have stopped him again. Did it make any sense? But no, eventually Yogananda had faith because he said, this is what the masters are sending me to do. So eventually there was space on the boat. And then he was asked to speak. He was going to Boston to speak at a delegation. And so he was asked while he was on the boat to speak, and Yogananda gets up in this room. There were many people, and then he realizes he can't speak English. Oh my gosh, you know, but then he realizes this is what the masters are sending me to do. They're sending me to spread these teachings, again, of self-realization to many thirsty souls that are out there. On a physical plane, does it make sense? Again, how would he do this? But he knew the masters were sending him. And then to go on with that story, then he spoke, you know, and often sometimes this happens to me after I speak, I get off and I go, what did I say? You know, and he didn't know what he even said. Was it even coherent? And everyone assured him that he spoke of such inspiring topics and he spoke so eloquently. This is what the masters are calling us to do in our readings this morning, is forgive, let go, love, live in the presence of God. Go and share his teachings. It may be a huge thing. It may be called to buy Laurelwood or do this or start a new school or whatever it is. It could be sometimes it's these grander things. And then we encourage others to come join and feel for the power of spirit. But really, it's even in the moments. Yogananda always talked about those moments. Take care of the moments, and then you'll find years go by, and then you find you're not who you think you were. You do forgive. You do let go of these things that sustain me and hurt you, can hurt you for so many years. Your heart opens, and you love, and you love, and you remember his presence, and you decide you're just going to live in that joy, and there's no other way to live. And we celebrate all the anniversaries of these great masters, their comings and goings, their precious times. We talked about this last night. The veil's thin. We can feel their presence more easily. Call to him is that beautiful song. Keep calling him. Never forget who's guiding your life. Never forget that there's a cosmic blueprint. It may not look pretty. It may just not make sense. But underneath it all, if we open ourselves to God's love is there. He's guiding us. He's calling us. And so what a joy to do this together. After our service, we're going to go and initiate another great big project. We're going to go over to the site of our new school building. And God bless all those who are hearing that call to share, to think that our school can double in size, that more children can feel that light, can learn the principles of education for life. It's such a blessing to be doing this together. I want to end with, this is from Songs of the Soul, and this is Yogananda's beautiful poem, When I Am Only a Dream. Sorry. And he writes, and let's close our eyes. This is Yogananda's words calling to us. I come to tell you all of him and the way to encase him in your bosom, and of the discipline that brings his grace. Those of you have asked me to guide you to my beloved's presence. I warn you through my silently talking mind, or speak to you through a gentle, significant glance, or whisper to you through my love, or loudly dissuade you when you stray away from him. But when I shall become only a memory, or a mental image, or silently speaking voice, when no earthly call will ever reveal my whereabouts in unplumbed space, when no shallow entreaty or stern stentorian command will bring from me an answer, I will smile in your mind when you are right, and when you are wrong, I will weep through my eyes, dimly peering at you in the dark, and weep through your eyes perchance. I will whisper to you through your conscience. I will reason with you through your reason, and I will love all through your love. And when you are able no longer to talk with me, read my whispers from eternity. Eternally through it I will talk to you. Unknown I will walk by your side and guard you with invisible arms. And as soon as you know my beloved and hear his voice in silence, you will know me again more tangibly than you knew me here on this earth plane. And yet, when I am only a dream to you, I will come to remind you that you too are not but a dream of my heavenly beloved. And when you know you are a dream, as I know now, we will be ever awake in him. Peace. Amen. We'll have